Hi, I'm Hans Pregler, Technical Director at Young Auditorium. Since we have no events until further notice, I have the opportunity to show you how all the magic happens behind the curtain. Welcome to Backstage Perspectives. Join me as we explore what it takes to put the show on the road. We will look at dance, music, theater, children's programming, Broadway musicals, and more. On this episode of Backstage Perspectives, I will be chatting with Tiffany Goodman, a talent agent based out of Texas, and Christina Thompson on the operations of a ticket office in New York City. Find a comfy seat, because our next episode starts right now.
So being a booking agent, largely, I spend my 9 to 5 on the phone with presenters, telling them about the roster, getting to know more about their audience. That's a big bulk of the job description. There are other things like going to conferences to meet those presenters, constantly curating the roster. I might see an artist at a show in a city 1 year and not work with them until 3 years later because they're in development. So constantly being aware of what is going on, what does the public already like, what do I think the public could like and be more curious about. I think that's even what's more fun for me, are the main features of being a booking agent. I do think it's important to emphasize also what is the role of a manager, because those two are very different, but it's not unusual for the words agent and manager to be used interchangeably. So a manager is going to focus more on the branding, the marketing, maybe now even social media, the finance of the group, possibly even approve the tours that the agent is passing on. However, if a manager does not exist, it's not unusual for an agent to take on any one of those tasks. So what a booking agent is definitely not set in stone. It really varies based on the person and based on the agency that you're working with. I always tell my artists, I need ammo, I need something. And so very often I have to choose who I am working with based on whether or not they're even ready, both on stage and off stage. So that could be encouraging, again, with the example of being on the phone and talking to presenters, encouraging them to hop on the website with me to check out videos of what the artist has. An artist may be in development at a certain point, and knowing which presenters, which communities are in need or have been desiring that theme, that type of work is really important. So constant communication with the artists as we develop together is how I can best represent my artists. Most important of all, when you're representing an artist show, is that you yourself like it. You yourself will want to buy a ticket to it. And that enthusiasm will carry so strongly to the other person that's listening to your pitch, so that they believe in what you believe in. It's nearly impossible, at least for me, to sell something I just simply do not like. So liking and loving the show, and also knowing that that artist, that group that I'm working with, are good people, is vital in representing artists and feeling good about it. Yeah, I call it my jigsaw puzzle. In the ideal world, I have what I refer to as a root calendar. So all the days of the year are on a calendar. And when I know there's a particular presenter, whether it's one, maybe it's 3 of them, that are able to be anchors for a tour. And by anchors, I mean that they are willing and wanting to put in an offer for this project. I already can see where this is growing in the region. And the more you get to knowing your geography of the US or the territory that you're working in, you start to get to know and you build these relationships that this presenter tends to book, or this city is only a 3-hour drive away. Google Maps is, or any map that you're using is vital to this. If you think way back into the day, I get blissed out when I hear other agents who are wiser than I am talk about using paper maps to route their tours. And like, how do you do that without the computer telling you it's a 3-hour drive away? And they told me that they would take their hand and create the distance with their fingers and just kind of learn and say, well, this is typically, 1 hour. And if it's this far apart, it's typically about 3 hours. We are so spoiled as younger agents having these tools that we have, that we're not having to fax. And can you imagine in a time like this, having to write in the mail, need to reschedule, confirm receipt? We would go crazy. So nowadays, having these tools makes routing simpler, but it's still not easy. Putting this puzzle together is, does that presenter need only weekends? And this one wants the Friday, and you kind of start to do one of these. So the goal isn't always going to be that beautiful connect the dots. It's going to be what's the most efficient in time, money, and exposure. And what I mean by exposure is we all know that while we have this internal budget, there are going to be shows and gigs that an artist might take on because that's the city they need more exposure in, for example. So can we justify and work the finances of this tour and the time of this tour so we are making sure we stop in and can grab that? So those are the three components that we're constantly thinking about when we're having a tour. It might not always be the most pretty line on the map. The idea behind this is that you are being most efficient with time and finance. So if you know, for example, that it costs, let's say, $20,000 that you need to clear in a week, you need to make sure that those different spaces that you're going to will somehow add up to 20. It doesn't mean it's going to be even, but you have to make sure that whether it's 5, 6, 9, whoever's paying what, adds up so that you're not losing money on the road. And ideally, you're making money on the road. So one of the things that we may not always think about when we're talking about routing is the methods of transportation. So as an agent, I start to get used to knowing where are all the hubs for major airlines. It's not unusual for me to have an artist in New York and me tell a presenter in Florida and say, oh, well, I've got this routed. And they go, how can that be routed when it's coming from New York? And my response is because it's only going to cost $50 one way to get them to you. And then from there they can drive. So these are all of like the different ways to manipulate a tour that as an agent you start to get used to. What are the different schedules by car? What are they by plane? Where are these hubs? Especially when you're talking maybe more rural areas and you know you're going to stop in that major city and drive 3 hours to get there. How do you book the gig in that major city or right outside of the city so you're maximizing your time?
I really liked that the nature of my job let me communicate with so many different people. So what I did is I kind of have two big things. Is I arranged group tickets both for events at NYU Skirball, as well as I would help members of the NYU community purchase group tickets for events and performances throughout the city. So Broadway shows, Yankees baseball games, basketball games, hockey games, the ballet, the opera, all really, if there were group tickets available, I probably looked into how you could purchase tickets for students at some point. So I would do that, but then the other thing that we did was we wanted to make tickets affordable for students and give them access to some of those student discounts that are available when you purchase tickets at a group rate. And so we would purchase tickets for different shows, different sporting events, all sorts of different events that people would potentially be interested in, and would resell them to them at just a slightly increased, just a couple $1 fee for us to make a little money off of it, but to also go towards paying people like me for, helping them get those tickets. And so I communicated with people from across NYU's campuses, but also all of these different ticket offices and people in the city. I think the biggest tip I have for when it comes to purchasing your tickets is purchasing them from the actual theater. So some theaters, depending on what show you're going to, you're purchasing it through Ticketmaster, or you're purchasing it through some of those ticketing services because the venue is using that as their way to purchase tickets. But I definitely avoid like StubHub or stuff like that, just because you don't know if that person actually has those tickets that they're reselling. So for example, when I was at NYU, we had Wildcrafts Live come, and we had several shows of it, and they were all sold out. And it's one where we had multiple people come in with tickets that they had purchased off one of these discounted ticket sites that tried to make the tickets even looked really close to what we use, but we knew that they were not the legitimate ticket. And so that caused a lot of headaches, a lot of tears for some people, but it's one where I think in most of the cases we were able to actually get them tickets. It was sad to see that those people had to buy tickets again to actually be able to see the show. TKTS is a discounted ticket booth. That is a legitimate way to purchase discounted tickets, as is the other one I've used is Today Tix. I've purchased, not all the time, but when there's been a show that I really want to go to that it was getting ready to close and I didn't purchase my tickets through us selling them, it's one where I would use that as an option.
Thank you for watching today's episode. This program was made possible by Young Auditorium. We hope that you will support your local artists and local arts venues. If you would like to support Young Auditorium, please follow the link below. Also listed below are the links to the websites of today's guests. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share our content.